The business community has been extremely involved in South Carolina. We have a business community that understands the issues of talent development, that is really concerned both with the current workforce and with the pipeline. And because of that, they have been partners at the table from the very beginning, and in fact, I would say that they convened the table. We also have the Department of Commerce, where I work. That's the economic development arm, and the governor has moved the Workforce Investment Program, the Trade Act program, and the LMI Grant program into the Department of Commerce to better align with economic development. We also had our legislature that's been very involved, and we'll show you the steps that they took. Our technical college system, one of you talked about community colleges' involvement. Ours has been absolutely critical to this effort, and we'll show you that involvement as well. And then finally, our K-12 education system is also a part of our venture. We started in 2000 and 2001. Our then governor asked a group of business leaders to come together and decide what had worked well from the 1994 School to Work Act. The business leaders looked at that act, they did a lot of research, and one of the things they found, as in many of your states, is that we had about the right number of folks going to and graduating from four-year institutions and two-year institutions, actually four-year institutions, for the amount of jobs that we had in South Carolina that required a college degree. We had more than enough people, sort of at the bottom end of the spectrum, for jobs that were low-skilled and low-waged and did not require even a high school degree at that point. But we didn't have enough people in the middle. We needed technically trained people, people with some secondary education, but not necessarily a 2- or 4-year degree. So we began as a business community to look at what we could do for that pipeline. One of the things that became clear very, very early was that our neighboring states, North Carolina and Georgia, against whom we always benchmark, had huge numbers of registered apprenticeships. Thousands. We had 800. So it was real clear to us that we were not maximizing the potential of that training opportunity in South Carolina. So we began to ask, what's the problem? At that point, I was at the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce, and we did 2 studies. The first really looked at why we weren't leapfrogging into apprenticeships the way that our neighbors were and the way that many of you across the country were. One of the messages for us, and we are certainly a very strong right-to-work state, was the fact that for years apprenticeships have been associated with unions. Our businesses were scared to death to open the door to apprenticeships. So one of the first barriers that we had to overcome was to show that, yes, union involvement has been a critical part of getting apprenticeships up and running, and it's a very strong piece, but it's not an exclusive piece. You can have apprenticeships without opening the door to a union shop. The second thing that we found, and we paid for a study for a woman to come over from Switzerland. The then president of our chamber was head of Roche Global, and that happens to be based in Switzerland. He was very much an advocate of apprenticeships because they use that so much in that country. So we had a woman that came over and compared South Carolina's use of apprenticeships with Switzerland's. They're about the same size, believe it or not. And we were, of course, nowhere close. Her conclusion was very interesting, and I want to make sure you understand it because it was how we drew in the technical college system in South Carolina. Her conclusion was, y'all have done way too good a job at selling the dream. And the dream is a 4-year college education. The message that we've sent across the country, and certainly in South Carolina, to parents and kids is that in order to be successful, you've got to have a 4-year college degree. They saw apprenticeships as something less than a 4-year college degree. So her advice was, if you ever want apprenticeships to grow in South Carolina, you're going to have to marry them with some sort of higher ed. We did several things. First of all, we had a state strategic plan. One of the key goals in our strategic plan was to increase business services, and under that, one of the keys was registered apprenticeships. We have a policy advocacy committee of our board. One of their big 6 agenda items is increasing the number of registered apprenticeships. So one of the things that we did in 2007, almost every state is required to have some sort of incentive policy for local workforce investment boards. We built into our incentive policy in 2007 that they had to give us a plan to increase registered apprenticeships, and that plan had to show coordination with the new Apprenticeship Carolina that was being set up at the technical college system. They got 10% of the available incentive money if they turned in those plans. This year, they actually have to show, in order to get 12% of their incentive money, increases in registered apprenticeships. The other thing that we did is we took $1 million of our state reserve money, and each state, as y'all know, gets reserve money. It's 10% off the top. You can use it for a number of things, and it doesn't have as many strings. And we put out grants. We told the technical college, when you get a business that's interested and you get the curriculum developed for the classroom part of the registered apprenticeship, let us know, and we'll be glad to use part of that $1 million to help fund the classroom training. We did that. Those grants are out there as we speak. We didn't have but around 800 apprenticeships in the beginning. We've only been at this, we're into our second year, but we've already increased. You can see the results of the first year. We increased by 25% and increased the number of programs by 24. The active apprentices at the end of the first quarter, and that was all the data that I had at this point, was another 15% increase and another 12 new apprenticeship programs. So again, the partnership is working extremely well. K-12 is at the table. We have to have, and we can talk about that later if you want questions or if you want me to come talk with your states, but we do have to have individual graduation plans for every student in South Carolina at the end of the 8th grade. Those have to include some experience at a job site before they graduate. We're building registered apprenticeship in at that level as well.